Hey, y'all. I hope everyone is doing well. And I know this is a difficult time for everyone. We're all kind of struggling about how to handle it and what to do and how to do this in a way that will honor God and truly be what He wants us to do. Uh, I don't have all the answers, that's for certain. But I came across a passage today that I would just like to share with you and just take a few minutes to unpack and to talk about because it gave me a lot of encouragement and I hope it'll give you some too. Because we've got a question not just about how we're going to live our lives in the coming weeks, but just in the coming weeks, what are we going to think about? How we're going to use that thought time? Because oftentimes we forget that the battle is fought between our ears. And we need to make sure that we are thinking upon the right things. It can be very easy to fall into despair. Uh, it, Sometimes you just got to turn the TV off. You got to turn the news off. You've got to go for a walk. Or you've got to do something to clear your head. But Paul said these things to the Philippian church, starting in Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. He said, "Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone." So the first thing he said is that we need to find joy in the midst of all of this. And I know what you're thinking. Where in the world is the joy? I'm not sure I can find it. I'm not sure that it's there. I'm just trying to survive one day to the next. We're just trying to make it from one day to the next, and we're thinking about our retirement plans, and we're thinking about our jobs, and we're thinking about all the bills that we have to pay and all of the things that we need to accomplish, and how is that all going to happen. I understand, believe me, I do. But God didn't just say, "I have joy for you when everything's going well." God said that He will provide joy for us even in the midst of the most difficult times. Remember, this is Paul who's saying, "Rejoice in the Lord always." And again, he repeats himself. I always tell my people, if God says something once, we ought to listen. If He says something twice, we ought to listen up. It's important. Paul says, "Rejoice in the Lord always, always." Even in the midst of coronavirus quarantine, rejoice in the Lord. But it's not just some sort of show we put on so that other people can see it. "Oh, I'm so happy that we're in this quarantine." Nobody's being fooled by that. That doesn't change anything. In fact, he says, "Let your reasonableness be shown to all men." That your joy finds a place in authenticity and reality in your life. And when people look at your life, they see the true joy of the Lord, where where they can't understand why it's there. We'll talk more about that in a second. He goes on to say, "The Lord is at hand." That means God's right here, and the Lord's coming back. "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." So he says, look, God's right here. Stop with the anxiety. Now I understand that's very easy for me to say, and I'm the same way. I've allowed myself to eat the wrong things these last couple of weeks. My gym is closed, so I have a perfect excuse for not getting up and moving around, and so the ice cream looks a lot better than the 3 mile walk. I understand all of that, and I'm subjected to it as well. But we need to understand what Paul is saying here. He's not just saying, don't be anxious. He's saying, look, take your anxiety to God. He understands what you're going through. He loves you, and He has a purpose and a plan in all this, and we need to trust Him, but we need to go through it with Him. Everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your requests be made known to God. So, the source and the beginning place of finding joy is not in the fact that our circumstances change. The beginning place in our joy is the fact that we continue to build our personal and intimate relationship with God through interacting with Him. And what does Paul say? He says, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. He said, if we will just take our anxiety to God, if we'll pray and talk to Him and be honest with Him, then we will experience a peace that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to us, and it doesn't make sense to the world around us. A peace that passes understanding will guard our hearts and our minds. Not just our hearts, where the anxiety is, but our minds as well, where the battle is fought. We'll find peace in Jesus Christ. Folks, in these troubled times, that's the source of peace that we need. There's enough anxiety to go around. But when are we going to get on our knees? When are we going to turn to God? When are we going to trust Him? When are we going to ask Him to show us how we might grow even through this difficult time? Just real quickly, look at the very last part of the verse of the chapter. He says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if it is if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. The peace that passes understanding. If we will not just tell ourselves, well, stop being anxious, but if we will dive into a relationship with God where we tell God, I'm afraid, I'm concerned, I'm worried, I don't know what to do. The more we take those things to God, the more we'll find that He is capable of handling them, and He'll replace our anxiety with peace. Folks, understand, you're not alone in this. God is here with you. And you have a lot of other people that God has surrounded you with, even at a distance. Understand that God is still God and that He is still in control. God bless you.